This is where I lived most of my life, doing baskets.
There are only a handful of people who make a complete living from weaving baskets, but someday Shereen LaPlantz is destined to be one. Although local recognition of her work isn't what it could be, she is already known as a premier weaver in many parts of the nation. And while some might make jokes about taking college basket weaving courses to pass the time, to Shereen it's serious business.
Very much so. You wouldn't make this kind of a commitment if it was only a hobby. This is my job. It's what I do. As I was beginning in weaving, I was working in yardage like most of us do, and I kept trying to have the yardage fit over a form so it could be sculptural. And I kept having to try and weld together forms, and I'm not a welder, and try to weave in wires, and I don't relate very well to wire and metal. When I started working with the baskets, the shape was inherent in the form. As I was making the thing, the shape would happen.
In 1972, something special happened. Shereen began creating pieces like The Bride and A Victorian Child, and her work began to change.
I remember the piece that it happened with. I knew it was momentous at the time, and I don't know why it happened, but it did, and every one of them in my mind is a woman.
Using a variety of materials collected from Hawaii or China or from her own backyard, Shereen creates from a simple weave some of the most complex baskets around, many drawn from other times or other cultures.
Mostly they come from the Filipinos. I'm very drawn to their work. The technique is very simple. I only work an over one, under one. It's the most basic of all weaves, and I've never managed to get past it. It's like I'm still working with kindergarten stuff, only I don't think I'll ever get past it. It's just the way you put them together. It's the sense of the textures and how they fit together that make the baskets interesting and make them mine.
Bill Green, KVIQ News West.
Although it's an art that's been around for centuries, metalworking is one that has just begun to really bloom in the past 25 to 30 years, and the artwork itself is now as varied as its range of buyers. The North Coast of California doesn't really present a market for such expensive pieces, but the Reese Bullen Gallery on the HSU campus has invited metalworkers from all across the nation to take part in their third National Metals Invitational. And here is a good way to get a feel for this form of creativity. Those in the business say that it differs from many other art mediums.
It's not really forgiving. If you make a goof, sometimes it can be taken care of, but it's not like clay where it can be re-wedged and you can start over. Although its properties are really fantastic. It's very quickly moved and it can be soldered together, and it's very exciting, but not everyone can do it or should do it.
Why is that?
Well, because of our temperament. Most of us start throwing things when we first begin working because things don't work and you're very frustrated. And then after you get through that phase, and if your technique catches up with your ideas or vice versa, it'll go pretty well.
The pieces in this art show are made up of a number of materials, including iron, brass, bronze, copper, titanium, silver and gold, and a few additional ingredients like plexiglass and enamel. And the horizon for such creativity is endless, although the cost can be somewhat of a deterrent.
It's a pendulum, and it swings back and forth. About the mid-60s to the mid-70s, there were a lot more experimental things happening, and now it's moving back to a safe position, and it's very disturbing, at least from my point of view. I'd like to see things branch out and go as far as they can go, but people are going to step more cautiously than they did maybe 5 years ago. And a lot of it's cost, and a lot of it's the availability of materials, and much of it, can I sell it when it's done? It gets down to bucks.
This has been a look at some of the achievements made in the art of metalworking, but just where that art can go from here is still in the imagination of the artist. In Arcata, this is Erin Meehan with this week's State of the Arts Report for Channel 3 Eyewitness News.